Hi everyone, welcome to the Wednesday webinar session. We are back again with our MRSA Wednesday webinar. We are in our 7th season and we are very excited for today's webinar. Next slide. Okay. Today's topic is amplifying human insights with AI. In this webinar, we'll understand from experts how they have used AI as a support system in the insighting journey while maintaining the human integrity with lots of use cases and practical examples. Next slide. Before we go into the webinar, a quick intro to the MRSI Wednesday webinar organizing panel. We have Amitabh Mishra, who is the head of Insights and Analytics from Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Mr. Sundar Muthuraman, Executive Vice President, Ipsos MMA, and Mr. Mukul Gautam, ex-VP and Chief of Capacity Building, Purple Audacity, and myself, Shiva. I am a consumer behavior consultant running my own consulting firm, Curious Cat, and I will be the host for today's session. And a quick note on MRSI. Market Research Society of India is a unique not-for-profit association for both providers and buyers of research and insights. And the core objective, what we operate on, is to create awareness of the industry, establish and promote professional standards, the code of conduct. On this note, I would like to add that MRSI provides a free certification course on code of conduct, and you can find it on the MRSI website. Would request you to kindly explore it and provide platform for professionals to engage and showcase their work and work. The MRSI Wednesday webinar is a key initiative to address this goal. This webinar is conducted monthly once, typically on a third or a fourth Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Next slide. Here are our esteemed speakers for the day. Preriit Souda, Director of Data Science, PSA Consultants Limited. And giving a brief introduction to Preriit is difficult because such a long note for that. I'll keep it short. He started as an academic researcher and moved into consumer insights. He has worked with leading insighting firms like Kantar, and he has advised and guided clients across the globe. He loves to share his knowledge and is a regular speaker at market research and data science forums. Welcome, Preriit. Thanks for being here. And Shaveta, Bhardwaj, co-founder and CEO at SprintStudio.ai. Shaveta has more than 23 years of consumer insights, and she specializes in creative brand strategy, innovation, customer experience, and psychology. Currently, she is passionately building a future-ready platform that can connect brands and consumers on the go. Thanks, Shaveta, for being here. Welcome to the webinar. And Vinay Virwani, head of consumer insights at Dabur. Vinay, with 20 years of insights experience and business roles at Kantar, Enkel, SE Johnson, Preriit, is currently leading the insights team at Dabur. His approach to consumer insight combines both analytical rigor as well as a creative flair. He focuses on agile methods and emerging technology to enhance the speed, accuracy, and efficiency of with market research. So we'd love to hear from you, Vinay, today. Thank you for being here. Welcome. And before we start the webinar, a request to the audience, please share your questions to the speaker in the question window which is provided to you. You will be muted, you can't ask or speak, but you can share your question from the window. You can address the question to a specific speaker or to the panel at whole. So please do that one. We welcome your questions. Next slide, please. As we all see, AI is everywhere. It is no longer a fancy term. It is reshaping industries, and market research is not different from that one. So we have been shifted and changed a lot. As per the recent global trends report from Kantar, 57% of the marketing professionals now consider AI-driven insights as an essential part of understanding consumer behavior. And with 62% expecting to increase the investment also. So AI is more relevant in market research and consumer insights. But next slide, please. But human insights still hold the key. We do recognize that AI has a lot of potential in enhancing market insights and strategies, but we also acknowledge that the importance of human touch and insights in that one. So we are still there. And next slide, please. In this webinar, we'll explore how we currently use AI in market research and what the future will hold to us. The slide which is shown in the screen is a Wednesday webinar presentation from 2018. It talks about how we can use AI in market research in 2018, and it typically talks about text analytics, chatbots for questioning, and big data analytics for sentiment analysis in social media and predicting behavior. Now we can see in this webinar how this has changed, how we have moved ahead in using AI in market research, and what are we doing now, and how AI will impact the future of market research. Next slide. I'm pleased to invite Preriit to share his experience with global consumer insights using AI and his perspective on what the future holds for us. Over to you, Preriit.
Okay, Shiva, I'm assuming you can hear me. Okay, so my name is Preriit. I work in data science and strategy. Right, nicely, it's like mentioned by Shiva. It's like so we have office in London. That's where we are based, and we also have back offices in India and associates in different parts of the world. So I've been given 10 minutes. I will try to be as quick as possible, and I'll give you kind of a brief look at the kinds of some of the work which we have done. So it will give an idea about some use cases of data science, and everything what we do is kind of artificial intelligence kind of an area, so it will give you an idea, some examples in a way. I'll also talk about one of the paper which we have presented at SMR recently, and it's also nominated with MRS UK as one of the best analytics paper. And then I'll talk about something which we have done some time back about the possibilities which will emerge by 2034, which is like 10 years down the line. So that's for 10 minutes. Let's try how much I can cover. So next, thank you. So here what I have is like quick kind of examples. So let's say the theme here is from macro drivers to micro effects. So the first example which you're seeing is ships to shops is actually an Indian example. So here the client, which is an Indian manufacturer, is like a small to mid-sized kind of an manufacturer of construction material, and they wanted to expand beyond India. So they wanted to know how, where, who, etc., etc. So it's not going into too many details. In brief, what we did was we looked at shipping data, the way of how ships move globally, like global cargo movements, like what's the value of ship movements of certain kinds of categories of products. That was then helped us understand the what's the flow of materials. Those flow of materials helped us understand like country specific economic dynamics and the how the category was evolving, which we then linked up with government public data, which was then helping us to understand what's the seller buyer kind of dynamics, which then helped us to understand how we are going to target and expand into different countries, all of them using data mining, or AI, what they call it. Second example, this is a recently stuff which we have done, which is like kind of a long-term strategy. And long-term strategy here, I'm talking of like 15 to 20 years down the, it's like down the line. So here, basically, it's a premium to super premium kind of a category by the global standards. And they want to understand how their category will evolve in next 15 to 20 years, where there will be demand, whether there will be in India or Saudi Arabia or Kenya, or how their demands will evolve in the Western world, and so and so. Complex kind of a project to do, because generally you would do some stuff like time series modeling or some such kind of stuff, but that generally is able to predict by around 2 to 3 years. Here we are looking at 15 to 20 years. So we created some kind of like algorithmic simulator, which basically takes like macroeconomic factors linked with digital search data of how people are searching, have searched in last 30 years, macroeconomic factors from almost 1990, that's almost like 35 years, and then created kind of a algorithmic simulator to understand what is a possible trajectory of how this category might evolve, and how we can introduce certain kinds of factors which can also be simulated to see different paths of possibilities. So that's another kind of an example. And the last example is from Asia Pacific, where we looked at how people were immigrating, how there was like localized immigration. So let's say in Indian context, that would be like how people from UP are moving to Maharashtra, for example. I'm just making this up, okay? And how using that information, we can predict how the telecom sector might evolve. And that actually helped us understand, well, the client was an investment entity, of how the investments might evolve. So that's like a quick kind of a snippets, like small kind of examples. Let's go slightly to a bigger example. Next. So here, this is an example which I'm taking from the SMR paper, or the MRS nominated paper. This is a work done for Mars snacking, which is basically also called Mars Wrigley, which makes chocolates like Snickers, Twix, and those kind of things. So Mars wanted to understand how does they wanted to understand fast delivery ecosystem, which is called ODD. And so in Indian context, it would be providers like, say, Zepto, Dunzo, and those kind of things. And here we are looking at 2 countries, US and India, and also 5 countries. I'll come on to the 5 countries in just a minute. So first we did a kind of a call research that was done by our partners in New York, and then came our data mining part. So we wanted to understand what were people thinking about chocolates, quick kind of purchases, because it's a very quick, it's like kind of a well category, how that evolves, what people are saying, and those kind of things. So we did a lot of data mining around your e-commerce reviews and all of that kind of stuff, like text mining, image mining, and those kind of stuff. We have been doing that for almost 10 years now. So it's like not a big deal. But then I felt that, you know what, in today's world, algorithms or machines actually influence how you are buying. So in a sense, what we did was we reverse engineered to understand how the machine is thinking. So once we know how the machine is thinking, and then we linked up with what the consumers were saying to understand what the machine is throwing to them and how are the consumers responding. So then we were able to create certain strategies. Well, actually, Raina, next. So well, this is just an example. This is like a very simple kind of an example around means what people were talking, when were demands coming up. It's like what were the reasons of them actually interested in the category, the buy different chocolate, fruit candy, etc., etc. And it was all linked with how the machines algorithms were evolving and how the consumers were responding and talking about that. Next. Now, all this was done. Client was happy, but interestingly, as Matt, who was who was on the client side, he said, "Let's make life of Preriit more difficult." So he said that, you know what, we have also done some call research. Let's actually throw that call research at your data mining algorithms and see what comes out of it. So what we did was, generally call research is like small data by our standards. So let's say the previous example had around 83 million kind of data points, and here we thought, okay, man, life will be easy. But we had video, audio, images, text from 5 countries: India, US, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Germany. And here we wanted to understand how people were saying, what people were saying about the category. And we were able to find a variety of different things. One is, let's say, a kind of a conversion funnel as to like why people are not buying something, and often it came down to how the algorithms were behaving. So here basically confectionery was present on x number of times on the first page, and how that led to conversion. Next. Then we were able to look at these fingers, how the fingers were moving on the screen. And again, this is called data. So it was permission allowed kind of it's a data collection. So basically how fingers were moving, and we linked up with how the speech and video was coming up to understand how decided or undecided people were on different food cuisines and restaurants. And that actually gave a lot of understanding to the client. Next. And then finally, what we did was, so basically, we also did some kind of a customer segmentation on this kind of multi-dimensional, multi-domain kind of a data. And then we thought that, you know what, we have created certain kinds of markers. These markers were then fed into kind of GPT and mid-journey kind of algorithms to create certain kinds of product ideations and certain kinds of marketing kind of ideation. Now, it's like these these images were not like marketing ready, but they were able to help convey our stories and also help client ideate certain possibilities. Okay. Next. So now I've talked about some examples, to think about. Now I'll just quickly talk about, I think I have just 1.5 minutes. So what I will do is quickly talk about how we see, and basically we did some kind of academic kind of a research around like a meta academic research on variety of possibilities which might evolve in next 10 years, and a small part of that was also to understand how the market insights profession might evolve. So next. So quick things, I'll just talk through a few things. When you look in market research, there will be more and more rise of multi-sensory, multi-dimensional advertising. This means that the research will also have to evolve according to that. There will be a lot of cultural hybridicity, especially between the two powers of the world, which is the Asian and the Western economic powers. And that will require a lot of cultural diverse kind of a thinking. There'll also be a new streams of research, which is like something which I had mentioned before, which is a experience with machines. Machines will often be the gateway into the minds of the consumers, and this means that we might not only understand consumers, but also the machines who are influencing how consumers are behaving. Next. Siva, probably give me just one extra minute. Then human created data will be costlier and will be gold standard. And there will be a lot of large behavioral data, but probably you can't access that because it might be behind the walls of technology giants. Research buyers would have a dilemma. Either you go with cheap summarized insights or costly raw data. You might have like costly claimed small size human data versus quite cheap, if accessible, okay, behavioral data. And there will always be like static pool of cheaper insights, which we are now seeing emerge, but then also be like custom created, costlier ad hoc insights, and there will be constantly be a fight between them. Next. As a market research, you will always be as part of like integrated system. You might not always only be talking to marketing or advertising or strategy guys, but more with technology R&D people. There'll be more consolidations, commoditizations, there'll be pace stagnancies, but I would say there will be a high growth, and there's a bit of opinion here, of technology first with human first businesses. Last slide. So I would say, as a kind of a last takeaway, be inquisitive, be detective. I would say be like kind of Sherlock Holmes. It's one thing, don't worry that you will just lose everything. In fact, you might actually gain, you might actually replace ad executives. Think about that. I'm not going into details of that. And finally, use tools. Don't be intimidated by those tools. That's all. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Preriit, for the insightful presentation. From shipping transportation to ordering snacks, quite a journey. Being a market researcher, the future does look exciting for me, and as well as slightly scary too. And we have a lot of questions to you, and we'll come back to you at the end of the session. And the listeners, please, you can type in your questions in the question window. Please do that one. And next slide, please. Now I welcome Shaveta to share her perspective on the AI adoption and readiness in India and an inciting journey with AI. Over to you, Shaveta.
Thank you, Shiva. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to actually start my presentation by asking you a question. What's your AI code? Not as an individual, but as an organization. Think about it. Yeah, next. Diana, next. Okay, so very intuitive. 97% of the business leaders are actually talking about urgency to deploy AI in the next 6 months. That's what they're really facing. But on the flip side, 86% also say that they're not fully prepared, right? And what's really holding them back? Well, no points for guessing. It's culture. Culture does eat strategy for breakfast, right? So culture will be crucial as we adopt AI and see the progress across organizations. Next. If I was to give you another interesting piece of data, Indian Gen I startups have had a record growth 3.6 times over a small period of time. That gives India the 6th position. But again, look closely, right? India AI country readiness. India's country readiness is actually low, and so is the investment, right? So that's stopping us somewhere, right? Going next. What's really happening in this particular space, right? This is very interesting because the largest growth is really coming from building AI assistants specifically for a particular industry, followed by productivity tools, right? But as you all know, the space is explosive right now, right? So the new buzzword is actually agentic workflows. So let me just explain that very quickly. What you do today is you type in the ChatGPT a query and you get the query back. That is called the zero shot mode, right? But in future, agentic workflows actually means that AI will be able to think, iterate, research, and revise the draft that it gives back to you and to your query, right? This is happening now, right? Going further, next, Diana. What does this mean for us? Market research in the age of AI, faster, better, cheaper? Well, let's watch a video. Just give Diana a second or two.
The app is now connected to the cloud. That means it can indicate available parking to the whole fleet in real time.
Calculating route.
No more driving around hoping to find a spot.
The car is parked correctly.
See, it's all about efficiency.
Recalculating.
Hope I've addressed some of your fears. Can we go to the next slide, Diana? Yes, thank you. So it's not going to be the world of just AI, but it's going to be AI plus human. A lot of us are talking about it, and that actually means augmented intelligence, right? What can AI bring to the table? What is the AI strength? It is speed, it is scale, it's pattern recognition, it's predictive, what Preriit also spoke about. It's also cost efficiency. But what do we get as humans to the table? Emotional intelligence, contextualization, the video actually kind of brings it alive, critical thinking, creative application, decision making, and ethical judgment of what is good and what is not good, right? Next, so what did we do at Sprint Studio? We actually built Conversation Studio AI, which is an end-to-end platform. Given LLM was giving us such a beautiful opportunity to transform the qualitative conversations into a mode of transcription to summarization. So why not? It will be, and it is X times faster. I'm not putting a number there for any gimmick. Moving forward, going to the next slide, Diana. Yeah, but why did we build it in the first place, right? If I was to leave you with a thought, it has to be a researcher-driven AI and not just an AI that we copy, paste, and apply and repurpose to us, right? What we found in the market before we started building was that, yes, techies have built a lot of platforms, but they were linear. They were not something that our industry could just use, deploy, and transform, right? They were not replicating the workflow that we follow. Quality is very dear to us. The rigor was missing. So we had to build something that was, really a process that we can follow to give it to the last mile, which is the junior most researcher in the team. And that is where the transformation needed to be felt. And of course, if it is not built out of India, cost will be an issue, and the adoption yet again for another technology could get delayed, right? Going next. So what did we build? We built an end-to-end platform, which has, let me talk about each of those components. Transcription can be done in minutes by AI. So you don't need any note taker. You can do your top lines really fast. You can analyze content. So this classical content analysis that we copy, paste, put it in the Excel sheet can be done in minutes for each conversation. After you've done that, you can actually summarize, and you know what, your drafts will be ready, within hours, within days, to start working on the presentation. And if you felt that quantitative guys had the fun with slicing the data, dicing the data, well, Qual is set up for interactive querying. You can tag the data, you can query the data, you can have many starting points, because now you have the time to do so. And yet you don't stop here, right? You can actually build meta libraries. So I'm almost imagining this as a search function, like we do the secondary search for primary unstructured data, right? Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that magic that we were all waiting for, right? Moving to the next slide, Diana. Now the use cases are so many, and we've been discovering these use cases as we go along, right? With each conversation, another use case comes to forth, right? Whether you use it, I mean, one of the big data points that is missing within organization is the internal knowledge itself, which comes through consumer emotions. Second, the fact that Indic languages are improving by the day, it simplifies your debriefs, note taking, team huddles, brainstorming, and a whole lot of stuff, right? You can search for this data, you can search queries, you can query data from the past and build hypotheses before you start, say, a UNA, right? Or you do brainstorming or follow-ups, or look at the same data from a very different angle, based on what you analyzed earlier, right? Or multiple data sets. Why just restrict to only voice file? What about community data? What about reviews? There are so many different possibilities. And one of the things that we definitely wanted to build was a right workflow that helps us identify if there are errors, and we're not passing on the errors as we're reporting, right? Next, Diana. Yeah. So what can it solve? So I'm just diving into the case studies very quickly. Now let's start with the consumer emotions that I really spoke about, which is informal. We can go to the next slide. Informal and completely unstructured data. The biggest problem is transcribe to kar loge, right? How do you summarize? Because there's no DG, there's no similar question. How does the AI really go and actually query the data? Because the query in itself is very different. We said we need to be very, very creative, and that's where, the researcher driven AI or a researcher driven workflow comes into being. We created what is called bookmarking. Moment you bookmark, it's a broad section, you can summarize it, you can summarize across multiple conversations, and that data which was missing within the organization is now available for us to mine, right? Going on to the next part. In fact, this is even more interesting because moment you create sections, you're able to also handle complex complex studies where you have multiple exposures of stimuli, right? Going on to the next point, which is I'm often asked about accuracy, how accurate it is. Of course, the progress has been significant and it will only get better from here. So we need to stay with it. We need to adopt it as we go further. But what I'm going to show you next is a feature that we built in, because we knew that when we read transcripts, what we find is that, especially the brand names, the technical terms, they're all jumbled up by AI because our dialects are different. There's so many different languages. Minute Maid is pronounced in so many different ways, for example, right? That's the example here, or Mirinda, or Coke, or Pepsi. Now, what if we were to input into AI, which is what are the proper nouns that it can expect when it is transcribing, it gets better. That is what is improving performance of AI very, very cleverly, right? So that's another thing that we experimented, and that's a joy that we have as we are looking at long conversations today. Yeah, going further, next slide. And what about inciting, right? I mean, that's the part. Now, given the fact that a lot of time has already been saved by, creating the content analysis, Excel sheet, etc., it's time for summarization, and this is where the fun really begins, right? Moving over to the next slide and showcasing what it really looks like. You can, literally query the data. You don't have to just rely on one Excel sheet. You can slice the data. In fact, tag it, just run the tags, right? Saying youth, male, Lucknow, plus Vizag, plus Kochi, what are the insights versus say all the big metros, right? Run the reports, run the data, you get it in raw form, you get it in summarized form. And that is something that I want to take a pause and also talk about a little bit more, because we all have heard about hallucinations, and it's very important that an input and an output was not suitable for our industry, right? So input, raw data, output, so that we can actually examine how correct the data is very, very important. And that workflow is what we have implemented. So you get the raw data, you get the summarized data, you can run as many reports as you like, you can create as many combinations as you like, and you can work and follow your curiosities, which many of us talk about is so core to the industry. Yeah. Final case is when we, Diana, can we move to the next slide? Sorry. The final case is now go back to the day, a day before your presentation, right? Or 2 days, or whenever you're working. First thought that comes to your mind there is, and many times, ki kuch chhoot to nahi gaya? Have I missed out something? There's so many transcripts. See, when you're analyzing 5 transcripts, 10 transcripts, it's fine, right? Moment you start stepping outside of that, you know that there is a human bias of recency that could set in. You could forget, you could have lost some thoughts. These are the tools that we're building, which are far more collaborative, where teams can work together. At the same time, we have an AI assistant which has come into being, which you just query the data and you have summarized themes that can come in, and you can validate whether this insight is something that I missed out as a human, right? At the same time, it helps you get to the raw data, which is where your confidence in AI, your it actually working with you as an assistant comes alive. So this is an example where we looked at 70 consumer stories and patterns and differences that we were mapping. Yeah, that's about it from me. I'm not too sure if I've overshot my time, but going on to the last slide, which is just to ask a question, what is the problem that you're solving? Because it really begins with that. So go identify your AI code to transform in future.
Thank you, Shaveta. That's interesting and also game changing. We look forward for the AI agents to come and do the heavy lifting. So that's what we look forward. And we'll be wary of the Google Maps for some time. So thank you.
Yeah.
We will continue the session with questions, and a gentle reminder again to the audience to share your questions in the question window. Next slide. Thank you. Okay. We look forward to use the use cases of AI from the research provider point of view. Now let us look at from the research user or the client point of view. I welcome Vinay. We look forward for hearing from you about your experiments and experience with AI. Over to you, Vinay.
Yeah, thanks, Shiva. And thanks, Preriit and Shaveta for very interesting use cases and the perspectives that you shared. I will try to cover it, this thing from a user perspective, especially in the FMCG context, and what our experience has been while on the work that we have been doing, and also some of the discussion that I have also been having. We have also been having with the partners in the industry, and drawing from that as well, right? So yeah, so we can move forward on this. So AI has been around, right? I mean, it's just getting better, but I still get questions, when I'm playing, some music in my car, I get questions, did you curate the playlist? When, I have to tell people that, it's not that I haven't curated a playlist. I have just kind of, played one song, and, the Spotify engine has, figured out, what is my preferences, what is my liking, and that's how they're playing the next song. But, now, it has gone to the extent of there is a Spotify DJ, which has been launched in many countries, in which I can actually tell Spotify that, I'm drawing a painting of, wilting flowers, play some songs to help me with the same. It will immediately understand what is the mood I am in. I want to be creative, I want to also probably I'm in a little sad mood. And, that's how the song they will play to kind of inspire me to make that painting, right? So that is the kind of stage where, AI has reached. And, of course, it has come through and typically this is happening in companies which have a lot of user data and which are more tech enabled companies, right? But all to such an extent. But when it comes to FMCG, right? Of course, there are other like banking services, etc., have been having a chatbots, and now moving to conversational AI, right? So, as I said, companies which have a lot of user data, first-party data, tech-enabled companies, they have been at the forefront of this revolution, right? But now, even in FMCG firms, also, AI, especially in the insights function, and even in other functions also, it is kind of coming in, seeping in, and becoming big, right? So maybe you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So as AI has been around for some time, and a lot of people here probably are already working on some part of it. But there are people on different parts of the spectrum, right? As Shaveta was saying, everybody here probably will having a different AI code, right? So just to kind of I'll just spend a minute to kind of just talk about where it has been over the last 10-15 years, and how we can segment it and how it is going to evolve, right? So for example, AI has been around in FMCG, especially in these 5 buckets, in the insights function only I'm talking about. Data collection and processing, right? The social listening part, it has been around. We can do social listening, we can scan the media, social media channels, and decipher the written text, and bucket it accordingly and generate themes and understand what the consumers are saying. We have been doing market mix modeling, where again we have been ingesting data required, and the machine is then finding a pattern and is deriving a cause-effect relationship, right? Programmatic targeting or media buying has also been around for some time. When the machine is able to identify a consumer who is particularly, let's say for example, who enjoys cooking, likes Indian food, is value conscious, and is of a certain age and certain geography, and create lookalikes of that consumer, and then kind of reach out to especially those consumers who are more likely to be the right set for that particular brand. Let's say if it's a spices brand and you're looking for a somebody who enjoys cooking and watching cooking videos and all of that. So this has been around for some time, right? But that's like the programmatic bit. Predictive goes a step further, where we have been from the market mix modeling, from the pattern that has been derived, you can now predict that if you were to invest so much amount of money, this is what it will kind of lead to in terms of your reach, in terms of your ROIs, right? Also pricing models, right? For example, I remember doing a large scale pricing study for a mass category some time back, and we used to refer to it every time when we used to make a pricing decisions. When we used to make a new pricing decision, where you can kind of simulate the pricing of my brand versus the competition and other players in the industry, and arrive at an optimum pricing, right? So that has also been around. That's like simulator is helps us kind of arrive at the right pricing, at the right marketing mix. Social listening, again, not just bucketing in different things, but also analyzing the sentiment, right? That has also kind of evolved, whether it is a positive sentiment, whether it is a happy sentiment, whether it is an anxious sentiment or whatever. So that has also been kind of now evolved. And of course, there are price and promotion models in which you can look at the historical data of the last 3 years, 4 years, right, and look at by each store. For example, in each store, what has, when a particular promotion was running, or when a particular price offer was running, or when not just for me but also for competition, what was the sales in that store versus 100 or 1,000 other stores, and how did the market behave, and kind of what will the market behave like if there was to be a certain change in the pricing or in the promotion, right? So for example, the pricing models that are there are through consumer claim data. The P&P models are there, which are basically analyzing store level data of millions of stores, right? So that's been around, but how do we're talking about amplifying or the human insights through AI. So we'll talk about that also now. So I think I'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So how do we amplify it, right? So there are two things that I think can kind of when we talk about amplifying human insights. One is making predictive AI, which is what we talked about, falls a lot under predictive AI, right? Making that itself more robust, and then leveraging Gen AI, right? So how do you make predictive AI more robust, right? So for example, data ingestion, typically in social listening or other analysis, has been more text driven, right? Now there is capability that is available to also analyze images, also analyze videos, right? And also analyze vernacular languages. That is something that is so badly required in a country like India, right? I mean, most of the engines today have only capability of ingesting and data which is only in English, right? But also or other foreign languages. But in India, you need vernacular language models also, right? So that is how we make the current models more robust. The representation of output can also be more user friendly. You can, as Shaveta was talking about, bookmarking and kind of just making it very user friendly, so that the user can click on different themes and just go to the right clip or the right part of the video or the consumer speak, right? And use it across, so the marketing mix, right? So ad testing, concept testing, even product testing, right? So that is another way you kind of leverage it or make make AI, amplify AI for human insight. And then of course Gen AI, and we'll talk about Gen AI a little bit later, but maybe we can just spend a couple of minutes on the predictive AI, making it more robust, from the next slide. Yeah. So as I was saying that expanding the scope of data ingestion and better representation of output. So this is a study that we had done, in which we had got the the AI model or the interface to ingest or take in the videos, right? Non-sponsored videos of influencers in the category of baby care, especially in baby massage oils. So the model was able to transcribe what was being said into text and then give us various themes, right? and it was in such a user-friendly format that you can click on different parts. So you can see in the screen that there are different questions. What are the drivers of baby massage oil? What benefits do you get from baby massage oil? And you can see that there are benefits, about skin care, sleep, relaxation, safety, and all of that, right? So something came out of it is that, sleep, for example, came out as something that, a white space in this baby massage oil category. And we worked on that and we created some content around it, which kind of gave us very good results, and which was also a winner in the MRSI Golden Key Awards. So I have a small video for that. Maybe we can just play that, which will help us understand this better. And just to tell you, this was including all the vernacular videos also, right?
Staggering market share for Dabur's baby massage oil. Dabur Lal Tail call for a revamp of positioning in order to connect to younger mothers. Approximately 100 influencer videos in vernacular languages were analyzed. After the videos are fed into the platform, Enumerate AI's proprietary software analyzes the vast amount of data and provides near real-time insights. The software automatically transcribes and translates vernacular languages in English, creates meaningful themes, and summarizes the conversation. We introduced the catchphrases from the research in the e-com platform and witnessed quarter-on-quarter gains. Let us hear what the primary beneficiary has to say.
With these white spaces, we strengthened the positioning of the brand and not only gained market share, but also it helped us to gain phenomenal growth on the brand.
Yeah. So, what we have been doing now is also to kind of using this platform also for our consumer immersions, right? So earlier, what we used to do, the brand managers used to go for consumer immersions, let's say 10 consumers they have met, and then they have come back and then they listen to the whole thing, and then they kind of prepare a debrief, right? Now what we do is we just, record the conversation and just put it in, just give it to this, to this AI engine. And, immediately in 1 minute, I get a whole debrief of the 10 consumer immersions with themes, right? Suppose if there is a when I go to I can always, so if it's a hair care category, right? And then there's a debrief and there are themes available for me in the dashboard, and I want to see what are consumers saying, particularly about damage control, right? How do we control it? What is the kind of damage that they find in the hair, and how do they what do they do for damage control? I can just click on that. The model will, or the dashboard will take me to the exact clip in the videos of 10 consumer immersions where consumers have talked about specifically damage control, and also not just the video clip, but it will also give me the transcription of it, right? And also summarize it for me. So this whole, we don't have to come back and listen to the interviews again and form a debrief or form insights. The model does it for us, and it also presents it in a very user-friendly dashboard. Anyone can use it, even from the top management to the the junior most guy in the marketing team can also use it, right? So that's how we are amplifying the predictive AI, right? Yeah, we can use it for e-com reviews, we can use it for qualitative analysis and all of that, right? So we can use it for various purposes. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. So today predictive AI is being also used across the marketing mix. It is being used for advertising because there is now so much historical data available. There are advertising databases, concept databases that are available, which is, so the tools are now able to extract thousands of features from the ad, layer it on the AI, and give an output without any consumer research happening, right? It is just basis what is the historical, and then it keeps evolving, right? What the firms are doing is also validating, at their end, also validating the output from the AI with full-fledged research also, and further validating the engine and evolving the model, right? So that's what that is happening with ad testing, content testing, and now even for concept testing also. So you can see there is a very high correlation between let's say the survey scores and the AI scores, right? So that's a very high correlation when it comes to different attributes. And something that we have also seen happening, we have also been experimented with some of the ads and we found that happening, right? So maybe you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so as I said, now even AI also has the capability to test products. We are kind of discussing with various partners which was so far not there. It was still limited to advertising and concept, but even product testing can now happen through AI. Of course, there is a bit of a human interface because there is of course, you have a small sensory panel evaluation, but basis that small sensory panel evaluation, it is then layered with the, R&D has given you a particular profile of the product. Sensory panel has evaluated it, and then it is layered with your brand equity, studies, right, that you have already done. All these three things are layered, which to give us, what is the optimum sweet spot for that particular product profile, right, and how far or away we are from that particular sweet spot, right. So, and for this, you just need to go to a sensory panel, which is about 20 expert consumers, and you have your brand equity studies, and you have some inputs from the R&D, and all three of them come together, and it gives us the final output, right. So that's also happening. That's a very new emerging area happening internationally and also happening in India now. So that's another way we are amplifying the predictive AI. Maybe we can go to the next slide. I'll just take another couple of minutes on Gen Z. Yeah. So Gen AI, right? Gen AI is simple, right? You can use OpenAI engines. You do a lot of, for example, if you want to get into a new category, right? Let's say, MFD drinks, right? You would typically, you have no idea, you have no experience in the category. You can, of course, all the time use an OpenAI, right? And you can talk about, questions that you have in mind. For example, if you were to talk about milk food drinks category, what do mothers give? Why do mothers give health drink to the kids, right? Usage habits, what are the barriers for the category? If you have something specific, right? What do you think about ideas of, what about the idea of Ayurvedic herbs in MFD? What are the triggers and barriers, right? All of this typically which you would have got in a qualitative study, you can now get it through, also. And then, of course, you can further, quantify it, test it, and all of that, right? So sounds simple, but, definitely something that, one can start doing, right? Going forward. Next slide. Yeah. So, concept generation is also possible now. There are millions of trends and data points on food and flavor preferences, for example. Again, layer it with the equity of the brand, and, the models will show you a concept which is, likely to find success in the market. Yeah. One last slide. Yeah. I think I would like to kind of, just end the discussion or end my talk here with this last slide, which is kind of a challenge also to the industry. Can we have, user generated? Typically now we have consumers reacting to a stimulus. Can we get consumers to now create the stimulus and tell us, what is it that they want, right? Because marketers are limited with what they know, what is feasible, what is possible. Consumers are limited by the articulation of what they want. But if they ask them to design, because now there are tools available, there is Canva and there is Tally, or so many tools available, consumers can develop their own, stimulus and tell us what they want, right? So that's broadly what I have from my side, and maybe Shiva, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay. Okay, thanks for sharing the use cases and helping us understand how AI can be used effectively from clients. And now it's time for questions. Hope all of you have posted the questions on the question window. Okay, first, I'll ask the questions. So I'll address to the specific speaker, and if the topic has some points from the other speakers, please pitch it. Okay, first question to Preriit. How did you ensure that AI was trained to account for cultural sensitivities, especially when mining the qualitative communities or generating prompts for the campaign? I'll add a bit from the question from the audience, Kapil. Kapil has asked, how do you factor political and geopolitical developments that we all are exposed to now, given these events are not as many in number? So how do you take into consideration the cultural sensitivities and geopolitical developments on this modeling?
Okay, fine. Well, there are a couple of questions. I'll try to be as quick and as concise as much as possible. Okay, so as far as the qualitative part is concerned, it's always a kind of a risky aspect. But what we end up doing is we use a lot of local experts, because there is a limit as to like how much a machine can go on to. It often has a kind of a limitation sometimes, like local nuances and all. And let's say me sitting in London might not always know about what's happening in Philippines, for example. Okay, so it might not always be possible to accommodate the machine for that. So we use local experts. We are also very cautious on how the data which we are capturing is captured and processed. So it's because what you're feeding and how you're feeding into the machine also influences of how good or bad you are getting the results. And there's always a human in the loop, because although I have been in this area for probably 10-15 years, I don't know exactly, but it's like the idea is that machines always have a limit. You should know what is their limit, and you always need to have some kind of a human knowing how the machine is doing something. It's like, because otherwise if you just trust on the machine, God save you. It's like, then the second question which you had was on the economic thing. I'm assuming this is for the long-term simulation kind of an example. I think that was referred. Okay, it's always a bit of a tricky aspect, because here we were not looking at 2 to 3 years, because 2 to 3 years, for example, it's like if someone is interested, in 2019 I wrote a paper for SMR which was on UK politics, which was kind of 2 years kind of a time frame. There are certain kinds of ways of how we can do some kind of predictions. See, keep in mind, politics is complicated, but there's certain level to which you can predict. But here we are looking at 10 to 15 years, which is quite complicated. So basically we had a predictive aspect, and we also had a simulative aspect, because let's say, for example, I think you mentioned there's a lot of uncertainty. Now here uncertainty varies a lot, because let's say we had African countries like Nigeria and etc., which is like very tumultuous. Then you have China, which we don't know how it's evolving or it's going to evolve, and then there's America, and believe me, India is actually much more stable than compared to a lot of other countries. And so we put in simulative aspects, that while we cannot predict every possibility in 15 to 20 years, but we can be able to simulate possibilities. So we put in simulative aspects at the local level and at national level and the global level, and also looking for certain black swan possibilities. So it's like, that's how we moved around that. So I'll stop. So go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, Preriit. Hope you answered your question, Kapil. And another question from an listener, Satish. Preriit, kindly also share and recommend some tools for the MR flows to get comfortable in preparation for the future. Also, is learning Python going to be mandatory for us?
Okay, here again, quick, I would say just one thing. As a researcher, or forget as an analyst or whatever, you always need to know what you want to do, and tools will constantly evolve. Because let's say if you look at 2015, before 2015, often R was considered like, oh, we have to learn this. And even before that, and even nowadays also, SPSS, SAS, etc. And now there's Python, all of that stuff. So one thing, so you need to know what you want to do, the basics of it, and tools will evolve. Having said that, still, if we are talking of tools, I would still say Excel is like, you need to know Excel. I know it looks stupid and old school, but still you need to have a good command on Excel. Then there are dashboards like Power BI, Tableau kind of stuff, good stuff. SQL, some kind of a SQL you should know, it will be helpful. Python, you should also know. If you are not comfortable with coding, that is fine, because the coding you can make ChatGPT do that stuff. It's not a big deal, but you should know what it is doing and how it is doing. Now, if you don't even want to go into the code route, there are like no code tools like Nime or Alteryx or certain things. They can do almost 90-95% of what you want to do in Python. Okay, so it's like, you don't have to do that. So there are alternatives. So, and there's a long list, but I think in view of time, I'll shut my mouth now. Over to you, Siva.
Thanks, Preriit. I love Excel. Thanks for that. And this question is to Preriit, but I would expect answers from Vinay and also Shaveta from the perspective. With the synthetic data becoming more affordable and accessible, what are the pros and cons in terms of quality of the insight generated? How does AI, which is trained in the existing data, impact this one? So what do you think about the quality of synthetic data, given that adoption will be much faster going forward?
So I'll just quickly, it's like say and answer that, and then shut my mouth. I'm a user of synthetic data, because I do teaching and also we create synthetic data, but I'm not a very big fan of synthetic data, and I'll tell you why. It is very much depend on the quality of the data, which is like how you're putting the processes in place, because if it can be GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out. Okay, it can be subject to process-led processes, what processes are being used. So there's a subjectiveness. There's also what processes, how good or bad they are. They can also be subjective to what data they are learned on. Okay, and all of these things, while they can make it cheaper, it can hurt economically the industry, okay, the research or the data industry, and it can also impact the trust on the industry. So I'm a bit cautious about the adoption of it, but I still know probably there will be an adoption. So over to you guys.
Vinay, anything from the point of view of synthetic data?
Yeah, no, I would, I would actually lean on to the, big research providers here also, because they have so much historical data, they have so much tools at their at their disposal, and they have so much R&D anyways happening, right, in research and insights, right, so that they are able to build confidence, right. So there is something that is done through synthetic data. Also do the same thing with the real consumer data and see how closely it is, right. And of course this requires funds, it requires R&D effort and all of that, but I think that does fall, the onus does fall on the industry, whether it is the big providers of research or even the the users also, right, who can fund this, right, collaborate and fund this kind of validation exercises to build more confidence.
Shiva, I will be very careful with synthetic data. That's my perspective. Okay, which tells me that it has to be objective driven, and it needs to be at what life stage of the decision making you're applying that. If doing it at a fairly early stage, okay, you can go ahead and do that. But if you take a decision based on a synthetic data, which will tell you, it's not like I come from physiology. It's not like आज prediction किया और 4 दिन बाद पता चल गया कि सही था कि गलत था, right? The decisions you take basis the data, a marketing team or a brand team will know 15 months from now. By that time, the amount of money that would have gone in, I don't think so the amount of money you save through just synthetic data is worth it, right? So the balance of synthetic data, depending on what stage you will apply it, fine, for shortlisting, for narrowing what you take into market. But our consumers are changing by this thing, right? Are we listening to them enough? And we are at the other end where we want our marketers to listen to consumers while they're in their cars, right? While every week, are we doing that enough? If you are, then go ahead and use synthetic data at some levels, but it's not at the cost of real data.
Thanks. So, one question to Vinay. Vinay, if the large companies start using their existing historical data and the current data what they're having, what are your thoughts on the potential risk of a client's primary data being used to test or develop a competitor's concept? What are the ethical implications? How should we handle it? So that's one question I had.
Right. So see, it is so I mean, even now, right? Even now, when let's say we are developing the the firms or the large firms are developing norms, right? The norms are based on the primary research that has been happening in the past, right? So so there is ultimately it's about I don't think it's about that's something that's a tricky area to be honest, but ultimately this is something that is not completely new. It is already happening now because let's say there are norms that are being developed for ads or concepts, etc. That is based on a lot of primary data from other clients, right? So it is all getting aggregated together, and that's how it is kind of that's how kind of it is used, right? So yeah, I don't see too much of a challenge there, to be honest, unless as long as the firms also have to ensure that this kind of doesn't kind of hamper the data privacy, etc. All of that.
Thanks. So we should be careful on that one too. And I'll come back to you. So now moving on to Shaveta. So there's a question from a listener, Kapil. Can the tool also consider the voice tonality as well? And which language does the tool currently support? Vernacular support and what's accuracy?
Okay, so I'll go reverse. Okay, I'll take the accuracy question. We need to remember that accuracy has a lot of dependence on many other factors and not just language. Okay, for example, the platform on which the voice has been recorded, right? Just to give you a simple example, like for example, 4 of us are talking here. Is the system recording each one of us individually or together, right? That hampers the accuracy levels or kind of enhances the accuracy levels. So if I would say answer the straight question on vernacular, please be aware that every 3 months the accuracy level is only going up, right? So at this point in time, if I was to peg the accuracy level, it's 85% above. It goes as high as 99%. Okay, but it differs by languages, it differs by many other factors that go into the voice recording file that you would be putting up for AI, right? That's the first, right? The second is, see, I'm not the one developing the languages and the LLMs, right? I'm using them, right? So the platform is ready to use any system that offers a particular language. So we've tested all Indian vernacular languages, जिसमें research होता है. I also went across to Middle East. It can handle English. It is at a roll right now. The speech to text is pretty much doing a pretty good job to for it to be relevant and usable, right? So that's the second part. What is the first part of the question? The voice tonality, right? We are kind of embedding emotion analysis, for example, at this particular point in time, but not voice tonality is not on the milestone at this point. But a lot of other interesting analytics that you need for a call interpretation are on their way, because there's a lot available by the tech world that we can integrate into our systems and platforms.
Thanks, Shweta. We are almost reached our closing time. Can you put the slides on, Diana? Sorry, Vinay, we had a couple of more questions for you, and we are skipping them also to Preriit also. The audience will get back to you on email with the answers to you. And also, I had a lot of questions which I have not asked them. I'll be behind them for that. So, okay. And this is, I'll tell a couple of interesting links what you can access for more information on this one. SMR has launched a list of 20 questions to help buyers of AI-based services for market research. Buyers or even people, agencies which are into AI-based thing can access this and understand what are the things they should take care, and this can guide a person to select the AI partner properly. Next slide, please. And if you wish to learn more about the application of AI in market research, please do check MRSI's YouTube channel for the videos of the recently concluded 30-second MRSI seminar. We'll have loads of information on how AI is being used on that one, so it will be a good place to learn. Next slide, please. And finally, the topic for the next month's MRSI Wednesday webinar, Evolving Masculinity, from traditional roles to modern expectations. Quite an interesting topic and a much needed topic at this moment. Stay tuned to the MRSI social media handles for more information on that one. Till next month, thank you all for the wonderful session, and thank you for the audience for being a great audience. Thank you everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.